she said. "You're more than just a friend to me." I never meant to get used to her voice. It started as background noise, a low, warm hum over coffee steam and the rustle of her sorting through papers at the cafe's corner table. I'd come in with my laptop, pretend I was here for the Wi-Fi, but really, I came for that hum. For the way her presence slowed everything down, even when the rest of the world was in a hurry. She was at her usual spot today, hair pulled back with that loose, effortless kind of care that made me wonder if she even knew she looked beautiful like that. Mid-40s, maybe more, but she carried herself like someone who had already survived too much to be concerned with proving anything to anyone. I was 23, just a guy with half-finished plans and more ambition than direction. We'd met months ago, over a spilled cup of tea that she apologized for even though it was my fault. Since then, we'd talked about books, about the weather, about nothing at all, always with this unspoken rule that neither of us acknowledged what was happening between us. This morning was quieter than usual. No music playing in the cafe, just the sound of her pen scratching across paper. I sat across from her, pretending to work, my screen untouched. "You're staring," she said without looking up. I froze. "No, I was just—" She glanced up, smiling, that small, knowing curve of her lips that always made me feel like she could read my thoughts. "It's all right. You just look like you're thinking too hard about something." I wanted to tell her she was the something. Instead, I asked, "You always work on Saturdays?" "Sometimes. Keeps me from thinking too much." Her voice was softer on that last part, like she hadn't meant for me to catch it. I leaned back in my chair. "And what's wrong with thinking?" She tapped her pen against the page, eyes drifting somewhere past me. "Depends on what you're thinking about." We let the silence sit between us, the kind that wasn't awkward, exactly, but heavy enough to make my chest feel tight. I could smell her perfume, something faint and floral, and I hated how aware I was of every small movement she made. The truth was, I didn't just like her. I was caught in something I didn't have the words for, something that felt too risky to name. She looked back at me, and for a moment, I thought she might actually say what we'd both been avoiding. Instead, she asked, "Do you ever wish you could go back? Change something?" The question hung there. I thought about missed opportunities, the kind you don't realize you've lost until it's too late. I thought about her. How? If I'd met her earlier in my life, maybe I wouldn't feel this constant edge of running out of time. "Yeah," I said finally. "All the time." Her gaze didn't waver. "Me too." Something shifted then. The air between us felt different, charged, like a spark had caught and neither of us wanted to put it out. She reached for her coffee, but her fingers brushed mine on the table. It was nothing, and it was everything. She didn't move her hand right away. Neither did I. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. My pulse was a hammer in my ears. "Anything." Her lips parted, but before she could speak, the chime above the cafe door rang. I turned. A man stood there, scanning the room until his eyes landed on her. And in that second, her smile faltered. The man who had just walked in wasn't her age, maybe late 30s, but the way she sat up straighter told me he mattered. He didn't smile when he saw me. He barely looked at me at all. "Mark," she said, standing halfway, her voice quieter than before. I busied myself with my coffee, but every nerve in my body was tuned to them. His hand brushed her arm. "Familiar, maybe too familiar." "Didn't know you'd be here," he said. "Just working," she replied, and something about the way she avoided his eyes made me feel like I was watching a scene I wasn't meant to see. He didn't stay long. A couple of minutes, a short exchange I couldn't piece together, and then he was gone, the cafe door swinging shut behind him. She sank back into her chair, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath. "Friend?" I asked, though I already knew better. Her fingers curled around her coffee cup. "My ex-husband." I hadn't expected that. "You two still close?" A humorless smile flickered on her lips. "Close enough to be polite. Not close enough to remember why we tried in the first place." There was a pause before she added, "We were together for 20 years. Since I was younger than you are now." I tried to picture her then. Younger, maybe softer in some ways, still figuring out who she was. And it hurt, for reasons I couldn't explain. "What happened?" I asked. Her eyes met mine, steady but tired. "We grew apart. Or maybe I grew and he didn't." She shrugged, but her hand trembled slightly as she set the cup down. I thought about telling her about my own history, the relationships that didn't last past a few months, the one girl I thought I'd loved until she decided I wasn't ready for anything serious. I thought about how I'd promised myself I wouldn't get tangled up in something complicated again. But here I was. She was everything I wasn't supposed to want. Older, guarded, carrying years of life I couldn't pretend to understand. And yet, I kept finding myself leaning in, wanting to know every version of her, even the broken ones. "You're quiet," she said, studying me. "Just thinking." "About?" I hesitated, then said the safer thing. "About how strange it is. The way people walk in and out of each other's lives." Her gaze softened. "And sometimes they stay." Something in her tone made my chest ache. We didn't talk for a while after that. The silence between us was heavy but not uncomfortable. Her hand rested on the table again, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. I didn't reach for it. Not yet. Instead, I let my fingers drift just close enough that they almost touched. She didn't move away. And in that fragile, unspoken space, I realized I didn't want to be someone who walked out of her life. I wanted to be the one who stayed. It was late afternoon when we left the cafe. The air was heavy with that end-of-day stillness, the kind that makes every sound sharper. She walked beside me, our shoulders close but not touching, her bag slung over one arm, eyes fixed ahead. We didn't speak until we reached the corner where our streets split. She hesitated, fingers tightening on the strap of her bag. "You want to walk a little longer?" she asked. I nodded, and we ended up in the small park a few blocks away. Nearly empty, just a few kids playing in the distance and an old man feeding pigeons. We sat on a bench. It should have felt casual. It didn't. "About earlier," she began, Mark showing up. "I'm sorry if that made things awkward." "It didn't," I lied. Her mouth twitched, like she knew the truth. "I don't usually explain myself to people." "I'm not people," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes lingered on mine, and for a second, I thought she might close the gap between us right there. But instead, she looked away. A voice cut through the stillness. "Mom." I turned. A young woman, maybe 19, was walking toward us. Same dark hair as hers, pulled into a messy bun. My stomach dropped. "This is my daughter, Emily," she said quickly, like she needed to get the words out before they became heavier. I smiled, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi." Emily's gaze flicked between us. There was a question in her eyes, but she didn't ask it. Not yet. After a few minutes of small talk, Emily left with a promise to call later. As soon as she was gone, she exhaled sharply. "She's perceptive. Too perceptive." I rubbed the back of my neck. "You think she noticed something?" "She notices everything." Her voice was low, almost a warning. Silence stretched, and then she stood. "We should. I don't want to pretend this isn't happening," I blurted. She froze, back to me. "This," I continued, "whatever it is. I'm not just imagining it." She turned slowly, eyes clouded with something I couldn't read. "You think it's that simple? You're—" She stopped herself, shaking her head. "You're too young to understand what this could cost." I stood too, closing the distance. "Then explain it to me." Her hand twitched like she wanted to push me away, but instead, it brushed against mine, a barely there touch that felt like electricity. For a moment, the world narrowed to just that contact. The park, the air between us charged enough to break. Then she stepped back. "Go home," she said softly, almost like a plea. But as I watched her walk away, I knew neither of us was going to. 2 days passed without a word from her. I told myself I was fine with it, that she needed space, but every hour felt like something was unraveling. By the third day, I found myself outside the cafe without meaning to. She wasn't there. I texted her, "You avoiding me?" No reply. By evening, I caved and went to her house. The porch light was on, but the rest of the place was dark except for the warm glow from the kitchen. Through the window, I saw her at the table, head in her hands. I knocked before I could think better of it. When she opened the door, she looked tired. Not in the way that sleep fixes, but in the way that comes from carrying too much for too long. "What are you doing here?" she asked. You didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. "Then just say what you're thinking." I pushed. Her eyes flared with something sharp. Anger, maybe, or fear. You think this is easy? You think I can just, what? Pretend there's nothing at stake. I stepped inside before she could stop me. What's at stake? My daughter. My reputation. She broke off, pressing her fingers to her temples. If people start talking, I don't care what people think. Well, I do. Her voice cracked, and suddenly, it wasn't anger anymore. It was something rawer. I've already been through one public disaster. I can't survive another. I took a step closer, but she didn't back away this time. You make it sound like I'm a problem you have to avoid, I said quietly. Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. You're not a problem. You're the thing I can't let myself want. That hit harder than I expected. We stood there, breathing the same air, our shoulders almost touching. I could smell her perfume again, the same faint floral note that had become its own kind of addiction. Do you ever think about me? I asked. Her gaze didn't waver. Every day. The words landed between us like a match dropped in dry grass. I felt the heat rising, the pull that had been there since the beginning. Only now it was almost unbearable. Her hand lifted, like she might touch my face, but she stopped halfway, curling her fingers into a fist. You should go, she whispered, though her voice didn't sound convinced. I'm not leaving until you tell me you don't feel it too. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. You know I do. The room was silent except for our breathing. My hand hovered just inches from hers, the space between our bodies so small it felt like gravity was doing the rest. And then, her phone buzzed loudly on the counter. She looked at the screen, and whatever she saw made her expression change completely. She stared at the phone like it had turned to ice in her hand. What is it? I asked. Her eyes flicked to mine, unreadable. It's Emily. She's at your apartment. I blinked. What? What? She said she needed to talk to you. About me. The words felt like a punch. She knows. I don't know what she knows, she said quickly, setting the phone down like it might burn her fingers. But if she's there, I was already moving toward the door. Then I have to go. She followed me to the porch. Don't say anything you'll regret. Please. By the time I reached my place, Emily was sitting on the steps outside, arms folded, chin lifted like she'd been rehearsing this confrontation all afternoon. Hey, I said carefully. Don't hey me, she shot back. I know something's going on. I tried to keep my voice calm. Emily, she's my mom, she cut in. And you're what, 23? You don't think this is weird? The sting in her voice made me hesitate. It's not. You think I can't see it? She went on. The way she looks at you, the way you look at her. I swallowed hard. And what if you're right? Her eyes narrowed. Then I'll make sure she walks away before you ruin her life. She turned to go, but I caught her wrist. This isn't what you think. Emily shook her head. I don't care what you call it. Just stay away from her. She left me standing there, my pulse racing, the night air suddenly too cold. When I went back to her house, she was still in the kitchen, pacing. She came to see you, didn't she? She asked the moment I walked in. Yes. And she wants me to stay away from you. Her shoulders slumped. She's not wrong. I stared at her. That's it. You're just going to let her decide this for you. She's my daughter, she said, voice breaking. If she thinks I'm making a mistake, so what? You live your life based on what she approves of. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the counter. You don't understand. She's all I have left that feels safe. And I'm not safe? Her eyes locked on mine. No. You make me feel things I'm not ready for. That's not safe. I took a step toward her, heart pounding. Maybe safe isn't what you need. Her lips parted, like she wanted to answer, but instead, she turned away. You should go before she comes back. I hesitated, wanting to push, to make her admit she didn't want me to leave. But the look in her eyes said the walls were back up, higher than before. And yet, underneath it, I could still see the crack. The next night, I didn't wait for an invitation. I stood outside her door for almost a full minute before knocking. When she opened it, she looked like she hadn't slept. Eyes shadowed, hair loose, sweater slipping off one shoulder. I told you not to. I'm not here to argue, I said. I'm here because I can't keep doing this. The silence, the pretending, the leaving every time it gets too real. Her hand tightened on the edge of the door, like she might shut it in my face. And what if I'm not ready? Then you're not ready, I said, my voice low. But I need to know that's the truth, not just fear talking. She closed her eyes, leaning her head against the doorframe. You think fear isn't truth? You think I don't wake up every morning wondering if I'm too old, too broken, too wrong for you? You're not wrong for me, I said, stepping closer. You're the only thing in my life right now that feels right. Her breath caught. Emily hates this. I don't care, I said, softer now. I care about you. I care about what you want. Her eyes finally met mine, and they were glassy with unshed tears. What I want scares me. I reached up, brushing my fingers lightly against her cheek. Me too. For a moment, neither of us moved. The hallway was so quiet I could hear the faint tick of the clock in her kitchen. Then she whispered, if we do this, there's no going back. I swallowed hard. I don't want to go back. Something broke in her expression, not a smile, not quite surrender, but something that looked like relief tangled with ache. She let the door swing open wider. We stood there, inches apart, breathing the same air, the gravity between us stronger than every reason we'd given ourselves to stop. I wanted to close the gap, to finally taste the thing we'd been circling for weeks, but I didn't move. Not yet. Instead, I said, tell me to go, and I'll go. Right now. Her hand lifted, fingers brushing my jaw, lingering there. I can't. And that was it. The choice, raw and simple. I leaned in just enough that our foreheads touched, her breath mingling with mine, every nerve in my body on fire. But before I could kiss her, a sound from the hallway made us both freeze, the click of the front door unlocking. We pulled back, just as Emily's voice carried into the room. Mom? Are you home? She stepped away, her expression unreadable now, though her hand brushed mine as she passed. Just enough to tell me this wasn't over. And somehow, that was enough to keep me standing there, heart racing, knowing the line between us had already been crossed. Emily's footsteps echoed down the hall before she appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, eyebrows raised at the sight of me. Oh, she said flatly. You're here. Yeah. I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Her mom, my almost something, stood between us, arms crossed, the weight of the last few weeks hanging in the air like humidity before a storm. I'll give you two a minute, Emily said, her tone making it clear she didn't approve. She disappeared into her room without waiting for an answer. Silence. I shifted my weight, my pulse still high from what almost happened before the door opened. Do you want me to go? She shook her head, but it wasn't a confident shake, more like she wasn't sure of the answer herself. No, not yet. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd first realized I liked watching her think. She toyed with a teaspoon, spinning it in slow circles. Emily's not wrong, she said finally. About what? That this is complicated, messy, maybe even selfish. I leaned forward. And is that enough to make you want to end it? Her eyes flicked up to mine, searching. It should be. But when you showed up tonight, I realized I don't want to lose you, even if it's not simple. The honesty in her voice hit me harder than anything she'd said before. Then don't lose me, I said softly. She smiled, but it was faint, tinged with something bittersweet. I can't promise it'll be easy, or that Emily will ever understand. I'm not asking for perfect, I said. I'm asking for a chance. Her fingers tapped against the table for a moment before she reached over and took my hand. Just like that, no dramatic music, no fireworks, just the quiet weight of a decision made. You'll have to be patient with me, she said. I already am, I replied, and for the first time in days, the knot in my chest loosened. We sat there like that, holding on, not needing to fill the silence. The kitchen light was warm, the clock ticking steadily in the background. It didn't feel like the end of something. It felt like the start. Eventually, she let go of my hand and stood. You should probably go before Emily comes back out. I nodded, but as I stepped toward the door, she caught my arm. I turned, and she leaned in just far enough to brush her lips against my cheek. It was brief. It was careful, but it was enough. When I left, the night air felt different, lighter, like the space between us had finally shifted. We hadn't solved everything, but we decided something far more important. Neither of us was walking away. And maybe that was the only ending we needed.